Alright, welcome back and thanks for tuning in again. So we got a little bit of a project to do today. I'm down here at a customer's location in Vineland, New Jersey, and we got this old International Harvester UD9 genset. You can't see it, we'll look at that in a sec. But pretty much what we got to do is upgrade the voltage regulator. The genset runs just fine, but doesn't make any voltage. And the customer wants to be able to use this as a reliable standby generator set. So let's take a look around the unit and we're going to get started. Alright, well here she is, International Harvester UD9. This is a 4-cylinder diesel engine, but the unique thing about these Internationals, these UD series, is they are gasoline start and diesel run. So on this side of the engine, we've got an injection pump, injector nozzles, pretty much standard equipment for a diesel engine of that time. This is probably late 1940s, early 1950s. I'm not certain. Maybe some international experts can tip us off here on this serial number. So there it is, we got a UD9 model. There's our serial. I don't know if anybody can get an idea of the date of manufacture for that. This engine is driving a General Electric generator end, 15 kilowatt, 220 volt, 3-phase. It is a 1200 RPM unit. Let's get a shot of the data tag over here. It's a bit tight in here. Here's our generator information. It is 15 kilowatt continuous at 1200 RPM. Notice that the voltage listed is 220, not 110, 220, not 220, 240, 220. So this genset, this generator end, was built without a neutral. It only 3-phase output. So when the fella had this installed, he got a transformer to take the 220 3-phase and change it over to 120 208 3-phase to allow 120 volt loads to be operated. We'll get more into the engine in a sec, but let's look at the original control box for this unit. We've got a big circuit breaker up here. Got really nice old General Electric amp and voltmeters. Frequency meter. Got 2 light bulb sockets. That would be for synchronizing if you're going to run multiple units. Synchro switch. And the voltage regulator manual adjustment. The automatic voltage regulator is at the back here. Another General Electric unit. Look at that. Beautiful. Well, pretty much the thing is not making voltage. Hasn't made voltage for some time. And he is not sure what the issue is. And honestly, if I were to take this project on to make this system work, it would cost more than what I'm going to do, which is upgrade to a modern self-contained electronic voltage regulator. Obviously, we're not going to dispose of any of this. We're going to keep all the original equipment in place so that if the day ever comes when somebody wants to restore this control panel, they can. But for right now, this is what I've built to replace the old control. And we'll go into the construction of this in just a second. But let's take a look at this engine. Like I said, it's a UD9 4-cylinder. Let me swing over to the other side here, and we'll take a look at the gas engine side. Like I said, a little bit cramped in here. International. Okay. So on this side, we've got a 4-cylinder magneto, little carburetor, the intake manifold, the oil filter. Pretty neat. We'll see more of this when we load test it, which we'll do later in the video. So right now, we're going to cut away to the construction of the new control box. Stand by. All right, well, we're back at the shop now. So I've got the enclosure, the voltage regulator, and the rest of the components laid out on the bench here. Let's get a close-up look at everything and we'll go from there. All right, well, here's our components and here's the cabinet. So this is a 16-inch by 20-inch by about 8.5-inch deep steel enclosure. It may be a little oversized for this job, but I had it in stock and it is pretty good quality. It's fairly thick steel. It's a little rough because it's been sitting around a while, but that'll get painted up. So we got that. Of course, most important part, the new voltage regulator. This is a Powertronics XC14. It should serve as an excellent replacement for the original components that are there. Just some random stuff here. We got 3 new meters, current, voltage, and frequency, 3 new current transformers, the selector switch for reading the voltage and current on each leg, a couple of panel lights, 1 indicator light, some fuses, a relay and a socket, a couple toggle switches, the remote voltage adjust rheostat for the regulator, and terminal strip. So these are really all the components this job requires. The first thing I want to do is remove the door from the enclosure. I should just be able to drive out the pins and these hinges and get everything laid out how I want it and drill all the holes to get the front panel components mounted. So let's get started. All right, well, the front panel is all drilled out. I just have the meter sitting in here now. They have a little bit of rock back and forth either way, just so I can get them perfectly straight when it's all painted up. So speaking of paint, I'm going to go with this. This is Rust-Oleum Burgundy, which I've never used this color for a control panel before, but I think it might look good. So we'll try that and see how it looks. So I got to sand the whole thing down, give it a coat of primer, and paint it up. Do the same thing with the enclosure. So when we come back, we'll be ready to start wiring the thing up. It's about a week later now, so the paint is all cured and hardened up. Got a nice gloss to it. Look, you can see my reflection there. So yeah, I like that color, that burgundy. It's definitely not a not a purplish color, which I was kind of worried about. Of course, I had to put 3 coats on it because I primed it with a white primer. So the first coat really kind of was purple, and I was a little bit afraid it was going to look like that. But 2 more coats, it really has a nice color to it. Look at the inside. Inside's not quite as glossy. I wasn't that concerned with it. Back of the panel here. I took the latch off. I bee-blasted that and painted that just a silver color. So I think it looks good. Here's the back plane. So I got the terminal strip here, 3 fuse blocks. We'll go into what they do in a second. Voltage regulator itself and the voltage regulator's relay. So I'm going to go ahead and screw all this stuff down and we'll get to wiring it up. Alright, well, the wiring is just about completed in the control box. It's a little messy. It's not that bad though. You know, I wish I had different color wires, but the orange and blue I had in stock in large quantity, so that's what I ended up using. Most of the control wiring is 18 gauge. There's not a lot of high current in this department here. The only thing that is a larger gauge is the regulator wiring for the actual regulator power and the field output. That's 14 gauge. But let's take a closer look here. Regulator relay comes down. We got fuses here. 3 fuses, 1 for each phase for the metering. 2 fuses, which is regulator power and regulator control circuit power. That's operating off of 2 phases, 2 legs of the generator output. And then we got a single fuse here, which is the DC fuse. And in this case here, the only thing that the DC fuses or that DC circuit is powering is this single center panel lamp. Now about these panel lamps, so we've got one center lamp which is operated off of DC, the 12 volt starting battery for the genset, and that's what this toggle does. All that toggle does is control that one lamp. The toggle on the far right here controls this lamp and this lamp. These lamps are AC and they operate directly off of the gen's output. The reason I wanted two separate lamp circuits is, you know, when the power is out and the guy's got to go out and start this generator up, I want him to be able to flip a light, flip a switch, and have a little bit of panel illumination. And then once the generator's up and making voltage, he can kick in the other two and kick out the center one or leave it on. The center switch is the regulator excitation. So let's go over to the little, I've drawn out a little diagram here of what the circuit looks like. So you can analyze that if you want. But basically you got the generator and its output wires, 3 legs. We're only using 2. So we break off right here is the top of this fuse block. So we break off, 2 legs go to a double pole, single throw momentary toggle, which is the one in the center right here. When you close that toggle, power comes over around these relay contacts and directly feeds the voltage regulator. Once the regulator starts exciting the field and the gen output builds up, that also passes through the switch, but it also goes to the regulator relay right there. So it's a 4-pole relay. So it comes out to 2 of the poles, jumps over to the other 2, and then jumps over to the coil of that relay. Once the gen's output reaches the pickup point of the relay's coil, the relay contacts close. This pair here closes, which shunts out the toggle switch, so you can then release the toggle. These other 2 contacts close, which lights up this indicator light right here. See that? I have it labeled regulator lamp. So pretty much how this thing's going to operate is, he's going to start the engine up on gasoline, allow it to run up to operating, well, not operating temperature, but at least the temperature where he can change over to diesel. He can make that change over to diesel. Once that's done, it will be running at 60 hertz. So you can come over here, lift and hold this toggle until this lamp lights up. Once this lamp lights up, that means that the generator has built up enough output voltage to close these relay contacts, to energize that coil and close these contacts, and you can drop the switch out, and then the regulator will be directly powered off the generator through this relay. Also a little bit of protection if the regulator or the gen's output ever drops below the dropout point of this coil, this relay, this set of contacts will drop out and the regulator will be shut off. So ideally that will never happen, but you never know. So I don't know if I even mentioned that at the beginning of this video. It's a gasoline start, diesel run gen set. So in cold conditions, he will have to start on gasoline and run on gasoline for 5 to 10 minutes before the thing is ready to switch over to diesel, just to get the engine thoroughly warmed up. And at that time, the gen set will be running below operating speed, which is 1200 RPM. 1200 RPM is the rated speed because it's a 6-pole generator. So I do not want the regulator to be trying to bring the gen's output up to rated while the engine is running at a low speed, which it may try to do. So just to protect the regulator from trying to force the field of the generator, we'll keep that out of circuit. And then once he switches over to diesel and the thing is up to rated speed, he can lift the toggle, allow generator residual voltage to feed the regulator directly. Once the regulator starts outputting to the field and the generator's output voltage rises to the pickup point of that relay, the relay shunts out the toggle switch, the indicator light lights up, and you can drop out the toggle and we're running. So that's about it here. The only thing I have to do is I got to figure out some nice labeling for these toggles here. I don't want to use like printed labels. I think that wouldn't look very good. I'd almost like to get like a brass plate or a plastic nameplate, you know, one for DC lamp, regulator switch, and then AC lamp. Oh, and then of course voltage adjust right here. So speaking of labels, kind of getting ahead of myself, the wire labels you see here, which they came out really nice. I've only been using these little labels for only one or two jobs now. You see them? They're very legible, and I use this this Brother label maker here, the P-Touch Edge, which makes cable wrap, they call them, cable wrap labels. And they're so much nicer than the write-on wire labels or the wire numbers, which I can't stand those things. So if you do this kind of work, you definitely need one of these label makers. Yeah. All right, well, I guess the next clip we'll be putting this on the generator. All right, so we're back on location here. The control box is installed. Everything looks good. Got the wiring all installed to the genset. Down below, we have the current transformers right here. 1, 2, 3. Move this out of here. That's just a cover for one of these selector switches. I'll put that back on. And these are just connection points to his load panel. So I think we're about ready. We'll go ahead and start it up. Make sure it builds voltage correctly. And then we'll put a load on it. I know this angle isn't the greatest. Again, it's a little bit tight in here. So we have the, well, I'll turn the fuel on first. The gasoline, we'll turn the gasoline on. Pull the decompression lever back to the start position. That latches in place. Starter button is at the back here. I gotta kind of reach over here to the choke, and we'll start her up. We are running on gasoline. All right, at this point we are thoroughly warmed up on gasoline. I'm going to add some diesel and kick it over. We're running on full-on diesel. Everything looks good. I just closed the disconnect here. Let's excite the regulator. I'm going to bring the speed up to about load on it. Alright, we got the load bank set up on the truck here. Let me sneak under these cables. Got our new power meter installed. I don't know if you're going to be able to see that. The sun's kind of washing it out. Alrighty, so volts line to line is 220. Kind of hard to see that meter, huh? Amps is 0, frequency 61.5. Now it's thoroughly warmed up. Let's hit it with some loads. Go back to amps. So 50 amps is full load. Let's start out light. So you can't hardly hear the generator run. It's about 8 amps, 8.8. Let's step it up a little bit. 17 amps. And 26 amps. About half load. What's our frequency doing? 61.2, 61.3, looks good. Voltage looks good. We're probably getting some voltage drop through these cables here. It's about a 50-foot run between here to the generator. 61.2. Let's go take a peek at the generator. Well, it's sounding pretty good. No leaks. I mentioned this yet, but this little exciter generator up top is no longer in service. We don't need that exciter because the new electronic regulator can provide the DC to the field from the AC output of the main generator. Let's let it run here at 50% load. Let it warm up. And then we'll bump it up a little bit. We'll make it work. It's been a long time since this engine did any work. Well, we've been running at 50% load for a little while now. Got some heat in the engine. Let's see. We're still at 25, 26 amps. Boy, this meter here really messing with the camera. 25, 26 amps, frequency still good. 61.3, 61.4. Let's take it up to 50 amps. Let's see here. Let's take a 6 off and put a 9 on. That brings us up to 35. We'll take the 3 off and put the 6 on. 43 amps. Let's throw the 3 on. 40, 50, 51 amps, 51.9. There we go, that's 100% load. Frequency dropped pretty hard though. Might have to go take a look at that governor. Voltage looks okay. Yeah, let's go take a look at that governor. We're down to 57.3. Got to bring it back up closer to 60.
Brought back up to 60. Might have to address that governor. Not too bad for this whole thing though. We're definitely making it work though. We're burning all the anti-seize off of those exhaust joints. That's the exhaust note at full load, just putting away. We'll let it burn for about an hour or so. Well, that's the end of our test. We ran about 1 hour at full load. Ran like a champ. All the load is off. We're back to about 61 hertz. We'll shut her down. Alrighty. Well, that is a successful run. I hope you enjoyed the video. It was a little bit shorter than usual. Didn't go into a whole lot of detail, but I hope you got the gist of it. So this thing is ready to run if it needs to. In the event of an outage, it'll be ready to go. Just come on out here, fire it up, and flip the toggle switch. I'm happy with the way that turned out. You know, I still have to make labels for the function of the toggle switches and the voltage adjustment potentiometer. So I want to buy one of those little brass engravers so that I can actually make brass plates for these. So I'll have to keep my eye out on Craigslist or Facebook Marketplace to see if I can come up with one. So appreciate you watching, and we'll see you on the next job.